clear. And myself, Caulfield, Dan.
Here.
And Lisa.
Here.
Welcome. Elyville, Carla.
Here.
Is Dee Dee remote?
She's not present remote. She might be joining us a little bit later. We'll see.
Okay. No rep from Gaffney Lane. Hazel Grove, no rep. Hillendale, Josh.
Here.
Sarah.
Right here.
McLaughlin, Denise.
I'm here.
And Tim.
Here.
And Park Place, Steve.
Here.
And Bob is here to my left.
Yes. Yes, I'm here.
Emily from Rivercrest.
I don't think
know.
she's gonna be a rep anymore, right?
Yeah, she asked me to remove her permanently from the CIC mailing list, and their Rivercrest Neighborhood Association is currently inactive.
She still has a couple good committees that she's staying involved with. She was a really great person to have involved, so she's still active at least.
And South End, no representation. Tower Vista, no rep. And Two Rivers, no rep. I think that's it. Tenants? Back to you, Linda.
All right, well, let's have our first presenter, Shaun Davis, giving his annual police report.
Perfect. Good evening. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I know I've presented this to the City Commission in, I think, February, and I also went out to Park Place Neighborhood Association and gave a presentation on this. So forgive me if this is old news, but I think it's very important news. So with that, I'll get started. I heard I have like 15 to 20 minutes, so I want to leave time. And so I'll kind of do a real succinct level on this and try to get through all the slides. I think I have about 40 slides. So this is our police department. Currently, our FTE, or our full-time officers, we are allocated to have 47 and 15 and a half non-sworn. In 2023, we hired 7 officers, sworn officers, and 4 non-sworn personnel. Unfortunately, in 2023, we also lost 7 officers. 3 were due to retirements. 1 went to a neighboring agency for a promotion, 2 didn't make training, and 1 actually got out of law enforcement altogether and moved out of the state.
What did we do to him?
He had an opportunity to move to Ohio and for family, and that's what he chose to do. The next one is, I wanted to highlight our calls for service. So a call for service is anytime someone makes a call into our dispatch center, and we record that call. It's anytime we do any type of proactive call. Anytime you call in for either a crime or just you request information, if it goes through our dispatch center, that's a call for service. So I wanted to highlight where we're at. We're kind of stayed pretty status quo since 2021, but just a slight increase of 29,530 calls for service in 2023. As you'll see on the right, self-initiated calls for service, those are anything that is a traffic stop, anytime we do a subject stop, anytime we do a community contact, which is a mere conversation. So I wanted to highlight those, and you can see that we do about 27% of our call volume is actually self-initiated activities. So our officers are out there being very proactive, being visible within our community. A lot of topics come up around these two, homeless-related calls for service and also our behavioral health related calls for service, so I wanted to highlight these. We don't always take a report on these, but we get a lot of calls for these. Interestingly, in 2018, we switched to a new CAD system, which is our dispatch MDC. And you think newer would be better, but it's not necessarily. A lot of the stuff is better, but there are some things that's kind of antiquated. So we can't actually do a keyword search in the text. So if a dispatcher puts in their gun, we can't do a search for gun. We have to do whatever's in the call type. So it's very interesting. So we realized that in 2019 that our numbers weren't exactly accurate. So we had to come up with a solution. So we actually create a clearance code of anytime we deal with an individual. So maybe it's a shoplifter and maybe we decided to write a report. We would do a H1 on that if the person was homeless. So we're trying to categorize how this is so we can understand the call volume within our community. So you can see that 2022 and 2023, well, essentially from 2019, we've had a very big increase in homeless-related calls for service. On the other hand, our behavioral health calls for service, I kind of categorized any behavioral health call, a suicide attempt, or a suicide threat, and you can see that those are actually kind of trending down. But when I get to our behavioral health specialist, you'll see some of the calls are trending up. So interestingly, she's doing a lot more outreach, but we're getting less calls through dispatch for mental health calls. In 2017, legislation passed a House Bill 2355, which required all law enforcement to record any proactive stops that's not attached to a call for service. So if someone calls in a theft and there's a vehicle related to a theft, that wouldn't be a stop data. If we are driving around and we witness something on our own, that's not dispatch, that's a recorded stop data. So these are perceived race, ethnicity, age, and sex at the soonest available perception of our officers. We don't ask anyone what their race is, their sex, or their identity. We then record that stuff. It gets sent to the Criminal Justice Commission, and then they publish a report, and there's a link there. Their reports are pretty high level, and so with that, we can get our own data, and we can categorize it and look at it, take a deeper dive. And so that's what I did in the next couple slides. So out of our 7,323 stops that are reported, 92% or just over 92% are traffic stops. Of that, you can see that 65% are perceived to be male and 34% are perceived to be female. We break it down by race and ethnicity. You can see where those fall on there. And then I also broke it down into female by race and ethnicity and also male, so we can see the difference there. So not every call for service requires a police report. A lot of times we can handle a lot of the calls just by talking to someone, but if we need to file a police report, these are the categories that we're drawing data from. So an offense incident is basically a crime report. So if you report a theft or burglary, that's going to be on there. A supplemental report is anything that an officer will write that will supplement that report. So if I wrote a report and I took the offense and I have a lot of follow-up investigative leads that I'm doing, that would be a supplemental report. If another officer is helping me, that would be a supplemental report. You can see traffic crashes. We don't take a lot of actual traffic crash reports, but we do respond to a lot of traffic crashes. And field contact would be anyone that we kind of contact out there that might be in a neighborhood that we want to document. And so if someone's in a neighborhood that doesn't belong there, sometimes we'll do a field contact report, or someone's acting suspicious. That way, if there's crimes later, we could follow up with that. Our homeless liaison officer also uses that when they offer services to individuals. We'll categorize that in a field contact report showing that we offered services to someone and whether they wanted the services or not. And then arrest report can be anytime we take someone into custody, either take them to jail or give them a citation to appear in lieu of custody. Records also processed 674 requests, which included public records requests from other agencies and discovery requests. 5-year comparison, we're kind of really close in that 5-year comparison. 2020 was COVID, a lot of reports tailored down, but we're seeing an increase. But I think a lot of crime is actually trending down in Oregon City, which is kind of nice. And we'll see that with a few more categories. So citations are what mostly our traffic officers do when they're out there. That's their primary job. But you can see later on, our traffic officers don't account for all the traffic citations, about half of them. In 2019, we had a pretty robust traffic team. And then because of staffing levels, we've kind of had to allocate our resources. So we're working on trying to get that traffic team back up because they do a really good job of creating, our streets are safer, but it's also like the halo effect when people see cops out there, right? We're trying to prevent people from speeding. We'd rather prevent someone from getting in a crash if they see us rather than having to take enforcement action. And then you can see our arrests have kind of trended down since 2022 and also 2019. This one kind of will show you a trend, the trends, but property-related calls for service I thought were when most people it affects their neighborhood the most, right? If someone's stealing from them, criminal mischiefs, burglaries. So I thought this was a good category. And as you can see, in 2023, we actually had the lowest level of calls for service for those property-related crimes. So I think that is trending down. And this, the bottom one is kind of a graph that shows the highest number of reports. So any report that's over 50 or over, I kind of categorize in these different categories. So you can see theft. We took 494 theft reports. DHS referrals are referrals that we receive from the Department of Human Services involving kids. Sometimes a lot of them are just information sharing between us. It's still documented. Some of those then will transition over to a crime report or an investigation. Then you can see we take a lot of informational reports that don't necessarily amount to a crime or one of those categories. Summary use of force reports. We had 70 documented use of force reports involving 72 individuals. Might need to move that now.
Just be bummed.
And 125 individual use of force reports. So anytime an officer used force, which is basically anything other than cooperative handcuffing, we have to document that. So the reason there's more reports, individual use of force reports, is officers, there could be multiple officers on scene that have to engage with the use of force. And so that's why that number is higher. We also categorize vehicle-related use of forces. So of the 70, 17 involved us trying to stop a pursuit through a pit maneuver, which was trained to basically spin out the car, but it's very tactical. Pin in a car so it doesn't try to run away from us, or we do spikes. So just over 5% of the time we arrest someone, force is used on an individual. If you take out the vehicle-related use of force, we're down to 3.8%. I don't have the most current the federal stats on this, but I can tell you that from history, that is way lower than the national average of use of force. So we do a really good job of de-escalating before we have to use force. And then this is just a breakdown of the force levels. So joint manipulation could be like an arm bar. And then you could have other physical control. We kind of break them up into categories. Digital control is kind of like of using force to manipulate their fingers to cooperate. And then taser. So you can see lower levels of force, we have quite a few. And then the more higher levels of force is a lot less that we use.
Digital control?
Yeah, it's kind of like manipulating their fingers.
Digits, got it.
Yep. It's highly effective.
What's a 40 mm?
40 millimeter is less lethal munition. That is a 40 millimeter round that is an impact weapon. So we could use that at a longer distance. It's a sponge round that comes out of there. And it's a pain compliance. Then I broke it down up into use of forces by race and gender to see where we fall into there. And we'll get into now a few of our specialties. So code enforcement falls under the police department. And in July of 2023, we were given approval to hire and increase our code enforcement. And so now we have 7-day coverage with our code enforcement officers. So anytime of the week, you can call in, and if they're working and they're not on vacation, you can get a code enforcement officer. So I think it's been really good for our community and for them to be out there and dealing with it, with calls as they're occurring, rather than having to follow up with them later on like a Monday. So if a call came in on Friday night or Saturday or Sunday, previously we weren't able to follow up with those until the next week. Code enforcement also, it's about livability is our primary goal. And you can see, I think this was up on Division Street, but we got numerous complaints. We had to work with the property owner to get this cleaned up. So you can see it before and after. And then we utilized our code enforcement officers to help us out to keep scenes safe. So if we don't put them in harm, but if we need to close down a street or there's a crash, we'll use code enforcement as a force multiplier to help us block streets and do traffic control. In 2023, there was 1,923 total cases. That was the largest number that they've had in 5 years, and a 20% increase since 2022. So I think more people are reporting, but I also think we're able to be a little bit more proactive out there with a larger force. And this is a kind of a cool project that Ryan Kersey, our code enforcement manager, and his team created. They were seeing tons of shopping carts throughout the community, right? And we would work with a vendor that they basically had the contracts with all the stores to go pick up these shopping carts, and they were very slow at it. So rather than just letting it sit there, right, it's kind of the broken windows effect. Let's go out there and clean them up. So you can see they've actually removed, since April 2023, they removed 333 shopping carts and picked up 66 bags of trash. So that's helping keep our streets clean. Our detective division consists of 3 full-time detectives and 1 detective sergeant. They're on call 24/7, and as part of their duties, they go out and help the major crimes team with very large investigations in conjunction with the district attorney's office. Last year, we had 2 detectives that got promoted to sergeant out of there, so we had 2 detectives, 2 officers that went into detectives, so they're kind of learning and getting a lot of training to get proficient in their job, but they're doing really well. This one is kind of just a quick year-end review. They didn't take as many reports, but unfortunately we had 3 homicides last year. So they had a lot more complex investigations that they were tasked with. So when that happens, I think the reports go down, but you can see search warrants went up, and our patrol division helps out detectives. They won't send as many cases to detectives. They'll kind of handle them themselves. Talk about the 3 notable homicides. Normally in my career, we've had 1. Sometimes we've had none. I think we average 1. 2 is a very large amount. So having 3, I think that's only happened twice in my 25 years here that we've actually had 3 homicides. And all 3 homicides were domestic related. David Estabrook was murdered by his son. Kara Taylor was murdered by her roommate. And Anna Wessel was murdered by her husband. All 3 were domestic related. And that accounted for 25% of the homicides in Clackamas County. So that's a very high number. It usually isn't that high. But all 3 suspects were apprehended, and they're all in custody waiting trial. So kudos to our detective and patrol team for working hard on that. In addition, one of our detectives does polygraphs. They got some new software that can actually help map cell phone data, so GPS data and cell phones. They do cell phone extractions, and they also are part of different special assignments, including our SIT team, which you'll see in a second, investigates drugs, and our SWAT team. They've also been our CNT team. Lacey Snelson is our property officer, but she also does our crime scene processing. This is kind of a breakdown of what she did last year to help us process. In addition to that, she also got certified in a forensics called Integrated Ballistic Identification System, or IBIS. And so she can actually now, basically if you fire a gun, every gun has its own fingerprint, and it leaves that fingerprint on the casing. So if we get casings, we can then, or guns, we'll test fire those, we'll submit those casings, and we can link cases together. And last year she got certified, I want to say in April-ish, and she submitted 65 guns, and of those guns, 3 of them came back to Portland Police Bureau homicides or attempted homicides, and 1 Oregon State Police attempted murder. So without that, we might not be able to solve some of the crimes and help our neighboring jurisdictions. So it's kind of a good tool that previously we'd have to send it in and rely on other agencies to do it. They would put that to the bottom of their work order because they're pretty busy themselves. So now we can go there and do that and do all the tests. Probably see a lot of our SIT team. We publish a lot of what we can on our social media about the good work that they're doing. This is extracurricular duties for them. They're members of our patrol division. They do a lot of this during the overlaps of our shifts or on their days off. And you can see it's comprised of 8 officers and 2 sergeants. They did 31 missions in 2023, wrote 7 search warrants, which led to 3 chronic nuisance properties, and seized a tremendous amount of drugs, specifically fentanyl. And you can see, I don't know the math, but I know we've saved people's lives because 2 milligrams of fentanyl is considered a lethal dose. So the amount of fentanyl we're seizing out there is pretty remarkable. Behavioral health unit, so this is Val. I just wanted to highlight her and the good work she's doing. We also got a case manager position allocated to us through the budget process. And so we're in our final stages of hiring that case manager, which will help Val. But she just doesn't respond to calls. She provides valuable training for our department and city staff and other community partners. And when I said our behavioral health calls were trending down, you'll see here that she actually had a 42% increase from 2022 of referrals. So she did 163 in-person outreaches, and of those, and she conservatively says 70% of those were related to homelessness. Training is big for us to have our officers be good at what they do. They need to be well trained, and as you can see, this is kind of breaks down all of our training that we do. A lot of the increases are new hires, so the training is the 16 weeks at the academy and field training. It gets incorporated to that, so there's a large number increase in training. A lot of that has to do with our new hires there. Our homeless liaison officer, he's been out there, but we've also had to kind of reallocate him from time to time. Currently he's on patrol, but we still do monthly coordination meetings with community stakeholders, and he fields all the complaints regarding livability issues. I shouldn't say all of them, but he follows up with a lot of them. And most importantly, he's versed in case law and all of our community partners and social programs that are out there. In 2023, we had a very large encampment that we kind of really didn't know was ours. We thought it might be our neighboring metro property. We used some mapping software and realized that it was actually ours. But you can see that there was 34 illegal camps, and this is an area that's in the canyon just north of Beaver Creek and 213. And of that, we took away 33,000 pounds of trash out of there, 23 shopping carts, and it took our cleanup crew 15 days to clean this up. Since then, it's been posted no trespassing, and we are kind of following up in there, but it was a pretty big camp that was in our community. But most importantly, we worked, it says 7-day notice was given. That was the final notice. We started working with the individuals there a month in advance when we knew we were going to clean this up, trying to get them interested in resources. And a lot of them did, once they realized that we were going to come in there and clean this up, a lot of them did accept resources. Our traffic team, when we're fully staffed, is comprised of 3 traffic officers and 1 traffic sergeant. As you can see, we just did slightly less than half of our traffic citations written by our traffic team. They responded to 348 traffic crashes, and they participated in a lot of different missions within our community and around our community. But they also go out there and are a part of our community and try to be, go to different schools and that kind of stuff. So it's pretty cool to see. And this leads me to our community events. We do a lot of community events, and these are some of our what we really like to do is being a part of our community. So some of these we reinvigorated since COVID. So summer camp, that was the first time that we've done one since I think about 2019, 18, 19. We got 30 grade school kids involved, and it's pretty cool. A lot of these kids are have had negative interactions with police, or maybe their family has, and so bring them in and let them get to see and get to know us is pretty cool. So working with our schools is very important for us. Citizens Academy this year was our second one, but in 2023 that was our first one. It was an 8-week academy, and we moved it to 10 weeks this year. We basically just about everything we can teach our community is we do classes on it, and we've had a really good success and a really good feedback from it. So we're going to continue that. So look for that. Everyone's welcome if you live in the city or you work in the city to participate. We've had commissioners, and we've had media, and we've had business owners and residents. So it's been really successful. So about November-ish, we'll start advertising again, and it'll start in January. We do a prescription drug take back. We also partner with the Women's Club to do shred events at the same time. So we have unfortunately, the Women's Club couldn't get the shred truck this year for the April event. So we're just doing a drug take back coming up in April. This is another one that's very successful and that's really highly sought after is our women's self-defense class. We do that 4 times a year. In 2023, we had 50 participants, and so there's always a waiting list for that. And then our biggest event is National Night Out. I think many of you have been to National Night Out more than once, and it's in August. It's the first Tuesday in August, and it's where we get to be a part of our community, and the community gets to come see and interact with us. And so our canines are there, our drones, our traffic, our bike officers, everyone's out there having a good time. We have a band, and so we look forward to that again this year. And then Trick or Treat on Main Street, that was Rob Lipke, our officer who was killed. That was his last event that he did. And it's a huge event down there. If you haven't participated, there's hundreds and if not thousands of kids and families that come down there for this event. And so we have a spot down there where we hand out lots of candy at right next to the courthouse. And then we were the first agency to get accredited in Clackamas County. That was in 2004, and since then we've got reaccredited every year. December 2022, we got reaccredited in April 23. They presented us with an accreditation certificate. So that's every 3-year accreditation, and so it's making sure that we're following strict guidelines and our policies fall in line with what is expected in law enforcement and what the trend is. And so it's a pretty prestigious honor for us to have, and we want to continue that. And then this was 2023 was Rob's 10-year anniversary when he was killed. So we did a ceremony up at for Wendy's, Eva, and our department and the community, and there was a good turnout up there. And then finally, I'll get to our future challenges. Again, you probably saw this and you probably saw Chief Band talk about it, but succession planning is always important for us. In the next 3 years, we have 7 officers that are going to be eligible to retire. Not that they are going to, but they'll be eligible, so we're forecasting for that. And 4 of those positions are sergeant or higher. And we're really focused on hiring and retention. Currently today, we're down 3 positions, but we have many people and I think we have 3 backgrounds going. So we're really close to being full staff. But with that, there's a long process to get someone hired. It's several months to go through the hiring process. Then it's a month or 2, maybe up to 4 months to get to someone into the academy, 16 weeks in the academy, and then 17 weeks for FDEP. So it's a long process if we get someone that isn't a lateral. So we're focused on that. We're focused on retaining our officers. We're focused on always the continual evolution of policing, right? What does the community need from us, and what do we need from the community? So understanding that and changing the way we police. And then I think the growth of the city, we can see it especially out in the Beaver Creek area. It's growing really big. And so how are we going to keep up with the demands of that and provide the same level of service that the community needs and expects? So with that, I think I got through it as fast as I could. I talk really fast, luckily, and so I'll leave that for some questions.
I have one question for you.
Sure.
I was gone out of the area, so when you come back, all you hear is the bad things that happen.
Sure.
Okay, so what I had heard was the huge influx that we have of illegal aliens coming in and across. Do we have a large number of those people in Oregon City, or is that something?
Not that I'm aware of. We can't ask
I know you
people's
can't ask.
residency, but I know years ago we reached out to the Clackamas Community College. They have a big program there for Hispanic individuals and there was a worry of like we were going to come and deport them, right?
Yes.
We worked with the college. We didn't do any presentations, but we offered it, but we reassured our community that we can't do that. So to my knowledge, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, just a question.
Yep.
All right, Lisa?
Out of the 3 homicides, can you please tell us were there previous calls for domestics to their residence?
Let's see. Not very many. If there were, there wasn't very much. I don't believe there was any, to my knowledge. I know we had on the father-son. I know we've been there on some other calls. But Kara Taylor, I don't believe we were there. They were kind of new residents there to the McLaughlin neighborhood. She hadn't lived there very long. I don't believe there was any calls. And Anna Wessels, I don't think there was any calls there, if I'm aware of. I could find that out, but not to my knowledge.
Sarah?
Yeah, you, on an early slide, you had a couple of columns. One was for homeless that had been warned, and one was for homeless. And I just wanted to understand what the warning entails and what does that statistic mean?
Sure, it can mean many different, so it could be many things. So like H1 is when we take a report. So maybe it could be a theft. It could be they lost some property. It doesn't mean that they are actually the suspect. It's just we took a report for whatever reason. H5 is obviously an arrest. A warning could be if maybe someone was trespassing, right? And the victim didn't want to press charges. We might warn them of like, hey, you can't be here, but we didn't take any enforcement action.
Then you heard from them again, but they had been warned not to be in that place. Is that what we're saying?
It could be.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, we give a lot of warnings out there. Like sometimes, people are doing stuff in a park, right? So
Right.
you can't have those activities in a park. And so we'll give them a warning to educate them and hopefully change their behavior. And then it's documented too. So if we did contact that individual again, we could know that we did warn them for whatever that might be.
Is there any place that a homeless person can set up a camp? Is that
Yeah.
something? Is there a legal spot where they could go?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting one, right? Because our hands are tied on many different things because there's a lot of case law involving homelessness, right? We have different rulings, the Boise ruling, the Springfield ruling, not the Springfield, the Grants Pass ruling, right? So it's not illegal to be homeless. It's not illegal to set up a camp. However, there's no place currently where someone could set up a camp, but there's places where we work with individuals that are camping that we're working with them trying to get them services, right? So they can't just set up a camp in a park. No one can set up a camp in a park. But if someone set up in and not blocking a sidewalk and we're trying to work with them with services, right? We may warn them like, hey, you can't camp here, but we may give them opportunities to work and get services.
Try to
Because
help them in
our goal
other
is
ways,
to,
yeah.
and so then we work with our community partners, specifically Father's Heart. They're very good at knowing these individuals and then working with our service providers.
And how do you feel about the proposed homeless center? Do you have it? Is that okay to even ask you?
I think Father's Heart is doing a lot of great things in our community, right? But the public sentiment is if you build it, they will come, right? And I don't know that. So we document this. We know when Father's Heart came here, we know that if there are services, it will bring people here. But I also know that Father's Heart is identifying individuals that are from different communities who may have services set up there and are referring them back to that
You're
community.
trying to place them back where
Yeah, because it's a very, if someone starts services in Multnomah County, they can't get services in Clackamas County. So they work with Multnomah County to get them back to their services
Understood.
where they started those services. But they've been very successful and they've got a lot of people housed. So I don't know. I think there's going to be a draw and there's going to be people that are coming here. But I don't know what that's going to look like. So we're trying to anticipate what that's going to be looking like. We've applied to get some grant funding through the county to hopefully help to provide more services. But our goal is, right, it's not illegal to be homeless, right? And we get a lot of calls, but our goal is to figure out what the root cause is, get them the services that they need, and hopefully get them back on their feet.
Thank you.
Yep.
Carla?
A little continuation on that, just hearing the description like in the canyon, and it's like, you're talking about all the steps you have to go through.
Right.
It's a huge burden on the police department to have to go through it. Do you get any assistance from county or city, or is it mainly just on the police department to have to clear up those camps? Because it's just, you already take on behavioral health.
Sure.
You already take on having to deal with a huge amount of the homeless population. And really, it's taking away from what you were trained to do, which was deal with, criminals or having to deal with traffic safety and now you're having to deal with such other parts of this. And it's like, do you get assistance on that? Because it just seems unfair that our police officers have to go down there and clean that canyon.
Well, we don't actually do the cleaning.
Okay, good.
But,
Okay, good.
but we've had to allocate our budget to account for these camp cleanups between code enforcement and the police department. I wouldn't say it's a burden, but I know because, like I said, we're always ever evolving, right? So currently, it's not a police department problem. It's not a parks problem. It's not a city problem. This is a huge statewide federal problem. And so it's going to take all of us to come up with solutions. Why we created the homeless liaison officer position is because there was nothing going on. There was no way to provide these services. There was no way to get this outreach. So we saw that as a need, and that's kind of what we've built upon. Yes, we are working, trying to get money from the county because they are giving money, and they are preparing to give out some grant funding for cities that are dealing with this. And I've had many talks with the leadership at H3S at the county, and they understand the amount of homeless people that we're dealing with and the services we're trying to provide and who we're working with. So they've been a good partner there. We'll see what how that funding transpires. We got some pretty good ideas of what we can use that funding for, but until that's shared, I don't know. I've been waiting for a final decision, but yeah, it's different. Like dealing with mental health. Over my 25 years, we used to go to more domestic-related calls and some fights between families, and we go to those, but not as much. Now we go to more people that are depressed and suicidal. It's kind of very unfortunate. And I don't know what the problem and the solution is, but I know what we're doing trying to help individuals in our community. And so I wouldn't say it's a burden, but it has increased our calls for service. But if there's a priority call, I can rest assured that we're going to those priority calls, right? We're very good at that, and we're very good at what we do. So if we're dealing with a lesser call at the time, we could break away and go follow up later. But so emergency services, high priority calls, that's not affected.
Thank you.
Yep.
Lisa?
The property there at 213 in Beaver Creek, you said part of that property belongs to us and part of it belongs to Metro.
Yeah, it's a very interesting. Well, in ODOT, there's a large trying to understand where exactly those property lines are. Yeah.
Well, when you evict a homeless camp from one area, do they just go to the next person's property and then they eventually
I think some might.
back?
This was a very concerted effort between ODOT. We got Metro, we got all of our community partners in there and went down there and did our outreach and worked with Love One, Father's Heart, 40, all these organizations out there to understand what people needed, right? And sometimes people don't want services until they need them. And so anytime we have a contact with anyone that's homeless, we ask them, what can we do? Can we provide you services? Can we work on getting you services, right? If they don't want services, that's where the Boise ruling and the Grants Pass ruling are, is where we can take some sort of enforcement action if we have to. But that is our last resort. We try to work with them. A lot of times there's individuals that we work with 20, 30, 40, 50 times before they're ready to accept services. And then we also know it's kind of like, for lack of better terms, it's kind of like an addiction. There's a relapse. So individuals that have gone into housing don't always succeed in housing. And so we don't just, we continue to work with them and continue to work with our partners. So I think having that wraparound services is super important.
Josh?
Hey, Shaun, one of the things I didn't see in any of your slides was anything about the schools or any interactions with the schools. Are you guys still doing school resource officers?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a good partnership with the school district, and we are allocated to have 2 school resource officers with an agreement with the school. This year, because of services, we've worked with the school and told them we've had prioritized having 1 in there at all times with the goal of getting up to 2 school resource officers as soon as we can. So we work really closely with the superintendent and her leadership team. But yeah, that's a big commitment that we want to prioritize. So yeah, it's not in there, but we do have one currently. Keep working on trying to get two in there. But being, when I say we're down 3 today, we're actually down 9 positions because we have 6 officers in training, whether they're in field training or down at the academy. They're riding around with a coach. Plus, we have 3 vacancies. So really, we're down 9. That's almost 20% of our workforce. So we've really allocated our resources. A lot of citizens won't realize that we're down that many positions, and because we're still providing a high level of service, but we're trying to get back there so we can fill those special assignments. We also have an agreement with the college resource officer with the college to have an officer there. So we haven't been able to fill that one, but we're staying in touch with the community college and work with them.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Right. Any other questions? Well, thank you.
I appreciate it. I appreciate all the questions. So my door is always open. Please, if you guys have an interest to talk further, we can go grab coffee or swing by the police department and have a chat.
Right.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we would like to hear from Melissa, Aquatics and Recreation and summer events.
Here's your clicker.
Yeah, good evening, Citizen Involvement Committee. I am Melissa Sebastian. I am the Aquatic and Recreation Manager. I have been in this position for a little over 2 years now, but have worked for the city in some capacity for 17 years at this point. I manage the swimming pool and the Francis Ermatinger House Museum, as well as various recreation programs and events throughout the city. So I'm excited to give you guys an update this evening. For Aquatics, so the swimming pool, that facility is open from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. most weekdays and as well as Saturdays. That's about 16 hours a day that we are staffing with multiple programs. That includes a lot of adult fitness classes, which includes drop-in lap swim, independent workouts. We provide space for people who may need to just come in and, work in the water on specific physical therapy needs. Or we have a lot of people where the only way they can get exercise is by being in the water and walking around. So we have spaces for that. We have water fitness classes, both shallow and deep end. We offer swimming lessons year-round in the evenings as well as in the summer. We quadruple the amount of lessons that we offer in the summer compared to the school years. We have adult learn to swim programs. April is adult learn to swim month, and so we offer a program at least every April for adults who, may have a fear of the water or, want to learn those skills so they can pass that on to their kids. And then we have 4 swim clubs that utilize this facility. One is a year-round club, 2 of them are high schools, and 1 is a private school in the city. We offer recreation and family swims, and then we do facility rentals on Saturdays. On the recreation side, the swimming pool facility has a large community room. So in that space, we run an indoor playground during the fall, winter, and spring months. That's on Tuesday and Thursdays from 9:30 to 1:30. And then we offer seasonal camps in that room. We typically do that on during winter break, spring break, and then about 9 to 11 weeks in the summer, depending on how long kids are out of school in the summer, because it varies each year. And then we do adult fitness classes in that room too. We offer yoga classes, some stretching and body toning classes, depending on that, on the season. And then with the Ermatinger House, we have a pretty robust field trip program that we really started last year, and that's grown significantly. I gave an update to the commission last fall since we reopened that site in 2018. We only had about 100 kids come through our field trips in the first 4 years, and last year we had over 400 kids come through that site, and we expect that number to keep growing this year with the amount of field trips we've already booked for the spring and interest we've been given. And that's been due to a really good partnership with the Stevens Crawford House and some of those other historical sites near that area. We do tours and provide different heritage information every week on Fridays and Saturdays from 10 to 4. And then we have an adopt an artifact program, essentially where people can come in and choose an artifact to adopt for a year and get a little card about that and their name by it. And then as far as the events that we have annually, the swimming pool, we always do a Halloween swim around October. We call it Swamp Swim. We do a glow swim series we do about one per month from the months of October through March. You can see the photo on the top right-hand side. We dim the lights and put on underwater lights and then some disco lights on the wall, and just provides a cool environment for people to come and swim in. We do Easter egg hunts in the pool, which we just did those this past week. So we throw eggs in the water and all the eggs float, and kids can, go swim and put them in their baskets and then turn them in for candy. So it's a different way of getting eggs. And then we host about 6 to 10 swim meets a year. For recreation, we provide the annual Daddy-Daughter Dinner Dance. We did a Spring Forward event this year. We have been a small piece in a series for a lot of cultural events that we've been adding in this past year, and that's been with a team of people, specifically Soul Flags Community Center, School District, the library. Heidi Blackwell has been really pushing this, but we've been able to do a Hispanic Heritage Month celebration, a Diwali festival, a Lunar New Year festival, and then on the upcoming dates later in this presentation, I'll tell you about the next 2 events that's coming up. And then we've got our Concerts in the Park series. We do 7 concerts every year, and then 4 movies in the park. And then the Ermitinger House, you can see there's a long list of events there. A lot of these events are annual, but we also are always adding new ones each year. And, I will say a lot of these events are made possible because of the partnership that we have with the Friends of the Ermitinger House. The Ermitinger House does only have one half-time position dedicated to it. So with all the field trips that we have coming through and the tours being given on Fridays and Saturdays, it doesn't give a whole lot of room to, do a lot of the planning for this type of stuff. So, that partnership with that group has been super valuable to us. And we have a MOU that we've all agreed on for the next few years that we're really excited about to continue that partnership. One of the events that we did this year that we added was a Sensory Santa event, and that was to provide a space for youth to come in who may have get overstimulated by going to malls and large public spaces, to provide a better, quiet space for people to come in. And I felt like the Ermitinger House was a really good location to do an event like that. So we're always coming up with new stuff there. For the programs that we have coming up, specifically for the spring and summer, the Ermitinger House field trip program, I talked a little bit about that, but again, we're having, because that site can only have, about 10 people per room, and a lot of schools want to bring 90 kids to a field trip. It's been really great because we've been utilizing this, our site, the Stevens Crawford site, the library has been participating. We're able to utilize some space at the Pioneer Center across the street to be able to continue to grow that and get more youth at these heritage sites. We have our Adult Learn to Swim program that's starting up this month, as well as a summer rec swim team. We offer a lot of club teams with swimming or year-round programs, and so we partner with our club team to offer a rec team every year in the summer for those kids that are, trying to figure out if that's the right sport for them. And then we have winter, spring, and summer camps. We just finished up our spring break camp last week, and that definitely gave us a taste for the summer and what we're about to head into. We will be offering 3 different camps this year, one at the Pioneer Center, one at Rivercrest Park, and then one at the Oregon City Swimming Pool. There will be camps available for all for ages 4 to 12. And then we also have a junior camp counselor program that we run throughout our camps for ages 13 to 17 for people who, may want to still be involved with camps or learn some job skills or, have, a place to help out throughout the summer. And so last year, I think we had 7 people a part of that program, and we're opening up applications for this year this week. And then for the events that are coming up, we just wrapped up our Easter egg hunts. Our next cultural event that we're doing is a MENA Heritage Fest, which is for Middle East and North Africa. That will be on Sunday, April 14th at the Pioneer Community Center from 12 to 3. And if you haven't been able to attend one of those cultural events, I highly encourage you to attend one. They have been very popular, and there's always really good food and entertainment and just a really good opportunity to connect with more people in your community. The other event, cultural event that's coming up is the Ukrainian Festival, and that'll be on Saturday, May 11th from 12 to 3, and that will be at Gardner Middle School. And then we have a July 4th event that we're doing this year, as well as concerts, the concert series and movie series, which I will go into in more detail on this slide. So our Concerts in the Park series, we are gonna kick off that series on July 4th, since it is on a Thursday this year. It will run for 7 weeks at the end of the Oregon Trail, same time, 6:30 to 8:30. And then the movies in the park will take place the first 4 Fridays in August, and those start at dusk. And those will be rotating between Wesleyland Park, Hillendale Park, and the end of the Oregon Trail. That's where we're doing those this year. And we should be announcing the winners of movies in the park this week. We just closed voting yesterday, and so we should be putting out which movies we are showing this year, as well as which bands we've booked for the concerts. We're trying to finalize our sponsorship for that still, and we usually like to announce the schedule with all of our sponsors at the same time, so getting that. And then dates to note, April 3rd is when our scholarships for our summer camps are due. I do want to note that if people are unable to get them in by April 3rd, we still accept them past this date. The main reason why we put a date is because our camp registration opens on April 10th, and it's important that we'd get as many of those through so that we can get the funds to people so that they can sign up the day it opens. And then I do want to give recognition to the Parks Foundation, because they do provide the funds to be able to provide those scholarships to a lot of youth. And I think last summer we were able to send just about 30 kids to camp for a week last summer because of that. I do need to make a date change on this slide. Our summer swim lesson registration will be opening up on May 29th instead this year. That change is due to recently finding out that the trail news is getting mailed out a little later than usual, and it's really important to me that we're not opening up that registration until those guides are getting into people's houses, just because sometimes that's what people depend on to get alerted about everything that's happening in the city. And so, so May 29th will be the date for that. Our summer pool schedule, especially with our wading pool and all of our additional recreation swims, will start on June 24th. That usually lines up, school gets out, and then we usually do a big training week to prepare all of our aquatic staff. And then July 4th is we'll have a July 4th event and kicking off the concert series. And then August 2nd is the first movie in the park date this year. And then before I open it up for any questions or comments, I just want to make sure to give recognition to all of our aquatic staff. Really, all of these programs that we put on, whether it's at the Ermitinger House or, you know, concerts in the park and movies in the park, are usually a lot of our aquatic staff that we're pulling to be able to help out with these events. So they're always willing to, you know, take on extra and do, you know, a lot of our park and recreation staff are known to wear a lot of different hats and kind of plug in where they need. So I want to make sure to recognize all the work that they do as well. And otherwise, that's all I have, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Denise?
Did you finally get a teacher for the deep water aerobics class?
We have a deep water exercise instructor. You talk about the morning classes?
I believe they had a morning and an evening class.
We have both. So our mornings, we have a deep end exercise class on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 to 10. So.
Dennis?
I think it's very commendable and begs the question on, like, do you have a sufficient staff, or are you relying on all volunteers in many of these programs, or?
I rely heavily on part-time unbenefited positions is what I'll say. So, you know, if you look at how, especially like how our aquatic staffing is done and how my position is managed, it's definitely a lot different than what you typically see. So I think there's definitely a need specifically for more, you know, programmers or coordinators or administrative staff. You know, anything helps, you know, especially when it comes to trying to develop more aquatic programming in our small space. You know, when you don't have enough space to put in the programs, it takes a lot more creativity to, you know, get that, and that takes a lot more staff to be able to get that to happen. And same thing with recreation opportunities. I think there's a lot more that we could be doing, but it all has to do with the capacity of which we have. So, yeah. Usually aquatic managers don't also manage, you know, big events and a historic house museum and all that other stuff. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Dan?
I think you're doing a fantastic job with the little amount of resources that you've got. The amount of people that I see coming to your events is fantastic, so keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for your good work and for coming. And now we'd like to hear from Cecilia Rose.
Cecily.
Cecily, oh, Cecily, sorry.
Yeah. Thanks for bearing with me. Oh, you have nice animation.
Well, thank you for having me, members of CIC. My name is Cecily Rose, as mentioned, and I am the Social Service and Pioneer Adult Community Center Manager. I've been here since May of 2023, so just under a year. However, I have been managing adult community centers in Clackamas County for over 11 years. Just one, actually, prior. But I'm very familiar with the work, and it's been an honor and a privilege to be a part of the city of Oregon City. So today I'm going to tell you about my favorite place in the city, the Pioneer Center, let you know what we've been up to, where we're headed, and hopefully answer any questions that you might have. Maybe. All right, so we'll just start with who we are. And for some, this might be a review. Of course, the Pioneer Center this year celebrates 45 years in operation. But we opened in 1979 as a resource to our community, those members seeking services, programming, and aid. We offer nutritional, educational, recreational, and social services to adults in our area. And our staff works very hard to provide clients with the tools and the resources to best serve them and serve out our mission, which is to help individuals in our community stay healthy, active, and independent as they age. Who we serve adults age 21 and over residing in Oregon City. We also serve adults residing in West Lynn as supported through our intergovernmental agreement. We serve seniors and people with disabilities residing throughout Clackamas County as supported by our subrecipient agreement with Clackamas County Social Services. Caring for the vulnerable in our community is a top priority. For many of our clients, we provide the only meal or human contact that they will have each day. This is why so much energy is focused on those efforts. And when I talk about the vulnerable in our community, I wanted to give a little definition of who I'm speaking about. So here are some statistics that just kind of educate all of us in that. And that is in Oregon alone, 107,166 seniors are threatened by or are currently experiencing hunger or food insecurity. 5,428 seniors reside in Oregon City. 10.2% of Oregon City residents have a disability, and Oregon has over 100,000 seniors living below the poverty line. According to Oregon.gov, that poverty line for one person household is $1,215, just to give you an idea of what we're talking about. Oregon City has a poverty rate of 7.8%, and what that means for us in this city is that 2,877 individuals are currently living in poverty. Seniors above age 85 are the fastest growing demographic currently, which means we are actually experiencing people aging into our demographic of service more and more. So the needs of our services are continuing to grow and rise as all of those baby boomers are still aging in. 1 in 6 seniors are victims of financial exploitation, and of course that is due to that vulnerability that we've spoken about already. Why I'm putting that on there though, however, is that is a very significant number. It did not used to be that number 10 years ago, but because of all the fraud that we hear about on a regular basis, we're seeing that specific need for our community members rise.
Cecily,
Yes.
your statistics for 5,000, what's the number for seniors? Is it 65 and over? You've got 85 down there. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
there?
that's a great question. So there are multiple definitions of seniors.
Yeah.
So a lot of our like detail, and I think I might have skipped that slide actually. Maybe we'll get to it. I think it's the next one, is how we're funded. And part of our funding comes from the Older Americans Act. Their definition of senior is age 60 and over. However, of course, if you're familiar with Medicare, you know that definition is 65 and over. So seniors by definition would most likely go with the federal, which is the Older Americans Act 60 and over.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, so the main services and programs that we provide at the Pioneer Center are listed here. Nutrition, and this just gives you a snapshot of what we did last year, sort of our annual report, so to speak. Last year, 37,264 meals were provided from the center for those unable to cook for themselves. We do have a very high eligibility requirement, so we're not just feeding people that could cook for themselves. We are feeding people who can no longer cook for themselves. Transportation is a robust program for us. It includes all transportation that we are providing on our buses. And so that's going to look like taking people to life-sustaining medical appointments. It could be taking people to their bank. Again, we're taking people who don't drive, who no longer drive. Maybe they've lost their license due to medical reasons, things like that. But again, these are seniors age 60 and over or people with disabilities, and we do provide the transportation and nutrition services in West Lynn and Oregon City. Case management, we provided last year 288 hours of time, and that was us providing personalized based care. So again, this is part of our social service contract with the county, but we are providing many resources. We do our case management to our Meals on Wheels clients. We're doing home visits to those clients. We're really seeking out needs when we do that. You know, sometimes that would lead to resources for durable medical equipment. Perhaps it could be building ramps in their homes. You know, all sorts of things can be uncovered through that case management, but that's what that focuses on. Reassurance or well-being calls, we provided 255 of them last year. Sometimes it's just making sure someone is okay. They didn't answer the door. We know Meals on Wheels is much more than a meal. It's making sure that they are well, that they don't need any assistance. Oftentimes, we do have to have formal welfare checks where we are igniting our local police department to help us with those. And resources is what we're probably most known for. So if somebody has a need, whatever that might be in our community, they can definitely call us, stop by, and we're happy to provide those resources. We do have to document our formal resources, so that would be perhaps providing someone with that nutrition resource or transportation resource, and we provided 1,446 resource connections last year. So we provide many services and programs, of course, throughout the center. In fact, there's hundreds of them, and that's not an exaggeration. While we don't have enough slides to cover all of them, I did want to highlight the ones that are recurring on our calendars daily, weekly, or monthly. And so you'll see under the miscellaneous social services, we provide energy assistance. That is the application process of helping people pay for their heat or cooling if they are eligible financially, which means they wouldn't be able to afford it on their own. We provide legal aid, support groups, tax aid, estate planning, foot care. We have a pantry program. We provide Medicare presentations and education. We also provide veterans benefits, presentations and educations, and long-term care presentations and education. For our recreational services, we are very known for our age-appropriate recreation, and these things do focus on more than just the recreation. It's also things focused on fall prevention and, again, aging well. These would include line dancing, Latin dance, Tai Chi, yoga, meditation, stretch and tone, bingo, ukulele, watercolor, writing. We do have a fitness room with a new addition of Silver Sneakers, Silver and Fit, Renew Active, and Active and Fit, which means for many people that is now free for them to access that fitness room if they have those benefits with their Medicare package. And we provide numerous holiday events, parties, and activities, again, just helping to fight that isolation that is part of really a hindrance that comes with the aging. And we provide day trips and outings as well. We do have many additional health, education, and wellness programs that we offer sporadically or seasonally as well. My clicker's not working.
There we go.
All right. So here's that how we are funded question, because I think it's very valid. It's a question that we get asked often, and it is supported financially through the collective generosity of many organizations and individuals. Like I mentioned earlier, we are supported through the federal funding that comes in the way of the Older Americans Act. We see that through our Clackamas County Social Service contract or subrecipient agreement. We do have contracts with the state of Oregon, and those are in the ways of Title 19 clients that we serve, also known as Medicaid clients. We, of course, are supported through the City of Oregon City and the City of West Linn. We do have private and corporate donors and sponsors, and we encourage those. We also have local businesses and community groups that support our mission financially, and we have participant donations. So many of the programs and services that we provide, we do have a suggested donation. It is not a requirement for most of those things. For instance, our nutrition program doesn't allow us to charge for that. Because we receive those Older American Act funds, we can only suggest a suggested donation of $3.50. And we also receive in-kind donations. So if somebody wanted to donate something, whether it was copy paper or coffee, we do take those things in as well. And we have many fundraising efforts and events that we host and hold throughout the year. I want to talk about community generosity. It's a good segue from our last slide, because we see an outpouring of community generosity throughout the entire year, but we are busiest during the holiday season, and this is where we see it the most. So we have the honor of witnessing this abundance through the center's giving tree, which produces holiday gifts for every single client on our Meals on Wheels program. In addition, monetary donations allow the center to host a very large and wonderful holiday party. Poinsettias are generously donated, and it's been annually now for multiple years by Smith Gardens for all of our nutrition clients. And Holiday Spirit Week this year included, thanks to donors, prizes and activities daily. We had volunteer music performances throughout the holidays, and pantry donations were collected. And we receive them all of the time and take them in, but this year the Oregon City staff at numerous facility locations took on collections and donated an abundance of pantry items that really sustained that pantry for multiple weeks. We hold that pantry every Friday at the center, and it's very, very well attended. I guess if you want to say something, you know, where people have such a need is well attended, it really is. There is a need in the community for that. And community partners with us in our fundraising efforts of our holiday bazaar and our wreath sales during that holiday season. We simply cannot do the great work that we do without our volunteers. The Pioneer Center currently has 95 active and vetted volunteers. What I mean by vetted is every one of our volunteers is background checked. They have to be because we serve vulnerable individuals. And last year, our volunteers provided 3,285 hours of service at the center. I want to note that those are documented hours. Many of our volunteers slip in and do kind things and leave without documentation. So the representation of the cost savings is probably much larger in reality, but that number represents a direct cost savings to the center in the amount of $106,335.45 because every penny counts. And currently volunteers fill the following roles. They are Meals on Wheels drivers, they are reception assistants, they are nutrition servers, recreational program leaders, event support, dining room hosts, recreational trip escorts, legal aid experts, and community garden workers. So serving the community from the Pioneer Center, of course, means all of those social services and recreational activities we talked about, but another thing that we're very well known for is our beautiful facility and the rental opportunities. So this is something that we, of course, budget for. It's a small revenue for us. However, what I love about it is that it's a very affordable rental for this community. Many of you have been there, you've seen it, but it's a wonderful venue for things such as weddings, celebrations of life, reunions, anniversaries, quinceañeras, birthday parties, business meetings, and club meetings. I will just note that we expanded our team with a rental and events coordinator this year, and our Parks and Rec department is in a transition of like our team taking over concerts in the park and movies in the park and some of the major events that are happening within the city, but also, of course, really honing in on rentals throughout the city as well. And that's going beautifully. So that position has been a very much need and also just a very added value to our team and to our center. Fostering diversity, equity, and inclusion is very important to us. One way that we did that is through those Melissa touched on this, but of the cultural events. Now, we do our own at the center in addition to partner as a venue for those collaborations that you heard about earlier from her. But we're very excited about the opportunity to bring those to Oregon City through the opportunity to allow them to be and encourage them to be held right at the Pioneer Center. Another thing I'll touch on, and I don't have a slide for it specifically, but is on that inclusion piece. Accessibility is very important to us. So this year alone, we were able to do 2 major projects that had to do with ADA upgrades at the center. One of them was replacing all of the hardware on the doors of the Pioneer Center. So they are now ADA accessible, easier for people with dexterity issues. If somebody was an amputee, that sort of thing, they can more easily access the doors at the center. In addition to that, we had a beautiful reception reconfiguration with ADA in mind. So if you haven't been there, I encourage you to pop in and see that, and you'll see those wonderful upgrades. We hold many special events and activities throughout the year. While I don't have a bullet list, you'll see that there's, of course, those cultural events listed here. There's recreational activities, birthday celebrations. We hold numerous citywide events. Again, we have this beautiful venue that we're able to do that. So some of the photos here you'll see pictured were the citywide volunteer appreciation event that happened last July and is scheduled to also happen at the Pioneer Center this July. In addition to that, we have hosted some HR luncheon, awards luncheons for city staff. But always excited to be hosting wonderful things. We accomplish the work we do by numerous ways, but the most prevalent is through the efforts of an amazing team. So here you see numerous staff members that are pictured, and I just wanted to publicly thank them and let you know what a wonderful job they do. So while we do many things at the center, one thing that isn't talked about enough is we help people in their hardest times. And so we are often dealing with widows. We're often dealing with people in their largest grief, season of grief. We're dealing with the crisis situations, people who were just evicted or things like that. And this team does it with the utmost professionalism, grace, and dignity. And every single day, I'm incredibly proud of the great work that they do for this community. We invite you to get involved, so you can do that in numerous ways. You can register for activities and programming. You can attend drop-in activities. Of course, you can volunteer because we're always accepting more volunteers. You can attend one of our wonderful events. You can partner with us or become a sponsor. And we encourage you to invite others. And I think one of the most important things for this group especially is to educate others. We know that still today, the best form of marketing is word of mouth. I encourage you to share who we are, what we do with your neighbors. And if there is any opportunity where myself or one of our staff members can come and speak to your neighborhood associations or any, group that you might be a part of, we would be happy to do that. Outreach is very important to us because we want to serve this entire community well. And if there are needs out there, and we know there are, we'd love to be able to help. Do you have any questions for me?
So I saw a slide that caught my interest. It's April 19th, Highland Games during congregate lunch. What is that?
Yeah, so April is actually Scottish Heritage Month. And so we are bringing some really fun activities. And we do have the world champion. He's the Masters world champion. So Jeff Rose, who also happens to be related to me, was in Switzerland recently where he won that title. But my team said, would he come? And I said, we could ask him. So he's going to be there. But we're also bringing Miss Oregon for Mother's Day. We have some really exciting celebrities, I'll say, local celebrities that are joining us for activities that can be lunch and learn activities. It can be educational opportunities, but excited to do so.
So he's doing a presentation
He
about
is,
the Highland
yes.
Games.
Yes.
About Highland Games in general.
Correct, yes. It's really just in honor of, Scottish Heritage Month. Yep, absolutely. They said we couldn't have him demonstrate. We'd ruin the lawn, so.
Okay. Dan?
Are you doing anything with Native Americans?
We don't have anything planned as of yet, but I would surely love to do that. My husband is Native. It's very important to me personally, and I think it would be a wonderful opportunity to bring to the center for sure.
I'm busy writing these things down, okay. Anyone else questions? Well, thank you very much.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Thank you.
Well, Jarrod. Gonna talk money.
That's a good April Fool. So good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. I know it's been long so far, so I only have like 100 slides to go through, so I'll be quick.
April Fools.
And I'm kidding. Okay. So during the last meeting, I was watching, and there had been some concern expressed about the budget, and I completely understand why. As we look at,
Is it not working?
we look at nothing.
April Fool.
Yeah, right. Hey, there we go. It's alive. Okay. As we now look at the budget, we can see some of the issues that are raising some eyebrows, causing some concern, especially when you look at how some of the neighborhoods are approaching their budget limit, have not had already reached their budget limit. So there's concerns about the lack of money, but there's also a disconnect because when we look at this versus what the city sees when we look at their budget, when they look at the budget, they allocate $30,000, but the rest of that breakdown, they don't see that. That's not really the city's issue. They're just like, here's $30,000, you do with it as you please. So the way they look at it, they see, $15,000 and a little more spent so far this year, with $14,000 remaining in the fiscal year. or 49% of the budget left with only 25% of the fiscal year left. So when we come to them asking for money, they're looking at me kind of like my parents did when I asked for money as a teenager and I never got it. So my thought is, what can we do to try to bridge this disconnect and kind of figure out what we can do so that the neighborhood associations can continue to do the work that you do and make sure everything works? And is there a way that we can kind of meet this in the middle somehow? So, as you know, under the current formula, just reading this for the record, the budget is distributed to each of the neighborhoods based on population. And at first glance, that makes sense. It's a equal way of doing it. But kind of going with the equality versus equity type of idea, my thought is, what if population isn't necessarily the best metric for us to use when we're dividing up the budget? So my thought is, and this is just something, suggestion, an idea, something to look at, is this is going back, looking at the prior meetings, is if instead of just dividing by population of the neighborhood, we instead let the neighborhoods not apply, but come forward at the start of each fiscal year with how much they think they will need based on the number of meetings. Because as we look at some of these numbers, some neighborhoods have higher populations, but fewer meetings, versus other neighborhoods that have smaller populations maybe, but more meetings, or in the case of like Elyville, pretty large populations and more meetings than others. So if we look at a formula that basically is more of an equitable way of distributing the funds, in that at the beginning of the fiscal year, and staff can help with this, is coming forward with numbers based on how many meetings you had last year, what those costs were, what you anticipate having in the coming year, and then we can kind of help divvy up those funds in a way that will make sure you have what you need for the rest of that year. And the other thing, so if we do come close to approaching that point, and I was told if we hit 10, I did not press that button.
I did.
Okay.
I put it back.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. No, if we hit 10% of the remaining funds, if we spend basically 90%, if we only have 10% remaining, then we can come to the city, and depending on the amount, either go before the commission or possibly the city manager. Then it'll be more likely that we'll have a receptive audience asking for more funds. So I think this might kind of help us get there, spend the money effectively, making sure everybody gets what they need. And maybe there's another idea as well, but I'm just kind of putting some stuff out there because I want to make sure everybody's getting what they need.
I think, Dan, you have a question?
Yeah, I think, you know, in my case, when on Caulfield, we did a lot of advertising. You know, I spent probably over $2,000 in advertising out of my personal pocket, getting everything going. We have a lot of people coming to the meetings, but we need to double the budget that we've actually got to continue on and get people in. And we got probably more people coming to our meetings than any of the other people now, but they need product, they need advertising, they need help on marketing. And we need to work together as a group to, you know, maybe we get into budget somehow, but we gotta get to the people. If that's indeed what the commissioners want, is citizen input.
And I understand that point, but I mean, to the point made earlier, you know, we can say we need more money, but when they don't see the breakdown. All they see is we have just about half left with only a quarter left of the fiscal year. Plus, we also have next fiscal year's money available to us now. That's not like kept in an embargo until July 1st. We could break into that now if we needed to. But when we look at that, so if we came up with a different funding formula, that would make it more receptive to that ask than it is right now, when it looks like we have almost half of our money still.
I think we're taking money away from the other associations that are not active, but I think as a group, we need to get the other two big associations, which is a big percent of the population of Oregon City. And once they come back online, that budget is completely way out. And I think each, like you said, everybody put in their budget for their particular association and get it to you, and then we put in a budget for the associations that are not there and get them marketed and get them going.
And I understand that, and I'm bringing forward to you what I'm being told when I try to bring, you know, budget questions and whatnot forward. But the fact of the matter is, we've had some money left over every year, for the most part. So it's hard for me to say we need more money when there's money left over every year. And Hannah's actually had some headway in trying to spin up some of the other neighborhood associations, which is fantastic news. Which again might more quickly get to the point where you're saying, but it would also get us to the point where if we hit that only 10% left, now we can make that ask and probably have it be more of a receptive audience.
Well, that's like you said, let's get the money spent and get all our people going and get it marketed and go ask for more money.
Yeah, I mean, I understand, because like, as right now, I mean, Carla brought up the issues last month that her neighborhood's out of money, and yeah, I mean, by that formula it is. Me personally, I feel it's almost unfair to Carla that she's out of money when this neighborhood's not even active, not using that money. It seems to me that money should be tapped into what everybody needs, and this is why this model to me feels more equitable in that the money's going to who needs it versus not who doesn't.
Carla? So here's the thing, can I see the budget of what we actually spent?
Yeah.
So if I did six.
Okay, you drive.
So if I did 6 general meetings and did, if you looked at it, did like, six, I guess, if you did a postcard every time you had a general meeting, I would need to basically, I'd need 2/3 more money to basically, 2/3 more than what I currently have. Now, reasonably, you can consolidate, right? You could, which I tried to do last year, which I tried to decrease the postcard budget. I tried to skip out on the summer meetings because they're slow. I mean, there's things you can do reasonably, because I don't want to take into other neighborhoods potentially that could potentially come in, and I want them to have that opportunity. So I would really like to look at too, what the standard should be, what we expect each of us as a neighborhood on standard of postcards, because I don't want to have 6 general meetings in each postcard if other neighborhoods aren't doing that, like Park Place. You guys do one every quarter, right?
We have 3 general meetings.
Yeah. So there's something to talk about.
And that's actually kind of what goes into part of my point here, is like, you have more meetings than others.
Right.
But, so the population dedication is not necessarily the best way to look forward or look at it. And then to the point of the other neighborhoods spinning up, I think that being one of kind of the part of the goal of the commission, if we were to get to that point where a couple more came up, I think that would also find us a more receptive audience to ask for more funds, because that would be something that is added to the mix.
Yeah, I think so too. Jim?
The first question I have is, what is the budget for? I mean, is it for marketing, advertising, and is it only for postcards? Because I've heard conversations going on where some people want to do a 2-page newsletter, and but they only want to do it once, right? I think we have to determine, because to make it equitable, we can't be all doing something different, I don't think. I mean, it makes sense, as Carla said, it makes sense that everybody gets to do something. And I think in your plan, which is a good one, to make it equitable, I think everybody has to have the same postcards kind of thing to me.
And that is definitely something that could be done. One of the thoughts that I had was possibly, a separate work session, essentially, at the start of the fiscal year, where we all kind of just, hammer these things out. In terms of the dedication of the funds, and correct me if my memory is incorrect on the wording, but essentially the wording states it is for support for marketing of meetings. Now, I don't think the definition gets much more specific than that. So if that's something that this body wants to come up with on their own, is make it kind of like a internal policy, for lack of a better term, that may be something we can look at. But
yeah, I mean, if we're going to be limited by a set dollar amount, we all need to buy into this thing, and we need to determine what's the best way to do it. And I think the fairest way to do it, I mean, I can't help it that I have so many people in my neighborhood, nor can you, right? So, and nor can I help it that Park Place has maybe less or more, whatever. I mean, it's fine. We just all have to come back with it and say, okay, well, we're going to do a card and we're going to send it out. And if we get to 10%, then we ask for more money then we'll all show up at the commission meeting and beat them down.
I didn't say anything about that.
And that's something that I want to point out on this graph as well. Like, Jarrod and I kind of
She helped me with the math. It's
estimated,
not my strong suit.
estimated based off of past years, because that's the thing, there isn't a trend. Like, it's not like a set number of postcards that neighborhood associations have been consistently sending out over the years. It's kind of all over the place, because obviously everyone has been trying to allocate their budget to the best of their ability. So we did this based off of that, but you could have it even keel, where every neighborhood association gets 3 postcards within the year. And then you have this is the excess funds. And then if somebody needed to be able to send out another postcard, or one of the inactive neighborhood associations did become active, they could come before the CIC and request that funding. But like Jarrod said, there's a certain amount of money that isn't being utilized by the CIC or the neighborhood associations as a whole, and obviously neighborhoods specifically that are struggling, that want to be able to use those resources. Then it comes to the end of the year and you have this amount of money that isn't being utilized, that we want to make sure the CIC gets to be able to utilize before the end of the year. That way, when it does come to the time where there are all active neighborhood associations, that you can go before the city manager or the city commission and be able to ask for those funds that you need.
That's essentially my goal is, one, make sure each neighborhood has what they need throughout the year so we don't have to have like what we had at the last meeting. And then 2, have it set up so that if we do get to that point where overall the budget is running close, then we have a more receptive audience for that request that we're going to have to make.
Josh?
So we spend a lot of time on this topic. I'd really like to eventually at some point not have to, but.
That was my goal. That was goal 3.
I appreciate that. You know, one of the other things that we're not considering is that we just had a 15% reduction in our postcard costs as well, right? And we do have all of these excess funds from Gaffney Lane and South End and all of that. So even if Gaffney Lane becomes active, that's great. That's awesome. We'll have money for them and they'll be able to fund out and do everything they need. But the long and the short of it is, just like Jarrod said, we haven't used $30,000. Okay, we didn't use $30,000 in a penny and go, Dan had to throw in his penny, right? We didn't have to do that. So we need to continue forward with this. And as we see we have that need, the city commission already committed to us that they would give us additional funding if we ran out. To me, that's the end of it right there. They already told us they'd do it. And if we can get Gaffney, or, if we can get more 6 meetings, that Carla's having, or get Hillendale, my neighborhood, to 4 meetings. We actually have 4 meetings, but anyway, then that's great. If we use up all that money, terrific.
Yeah, I think that is the way to look at it, because, and I didn't include this slide because I anticipated actually not even starting this until 9, so fantastic on that. But the fact of the matter, with funds left over every year, I think this way we can make sure that we're getting everybody what they need and then priming that pump for that ask when that does come.
Well, and the other part of that too is all the extra work that Hannah's done, and Emma before that, with getting the the email groups, and you of course getting those email groups all set up, and getting the the word out on social media, and all these trail news and all these other different avenues, and getting that advertising out there. That's just all going back right to the cause that we're doing, right?
Yeah.
So.
Lisa?
Well, I'd just like to tell you that I know that you've noticed that Caulfield neighborhood is about to explode with a multitude of families.
Yeah.
So we can't account for those numbers yet, but, so if we don't use that funding and that funding is left over, are you fearful that the city will take that funding from us, or say that we don't need it?
I do not want to make any predictions on anything like that. What I would say is more likely is we are going to have a hard time asking for more funds when we do have leftover. So in this case, I mean, the money that's left over now does carry over until the second because of the city operates on that biennial fiscal year program thing. But after next fiscal year, then that money does go away. I mean, it's not like for the next year, but I mean, what we have left over doesn't carry over past the second year of the biennium.
And when does
So,
that end?
so we
That would
actually,
be July or June 30th of 25.
so to clarify, our budget is actually $60,000 for biennium.
Yes.
Okay.
Just because it's already complicated enough, I didn't add that really into the mix.
And I'll tell you too, Lisa, based off of the last couple years where the CIC has consistently underspent their budget has never been retracted. They've never received a lesser budget, if that makes.
Because what was slated for a small project there on Beaver Creek is now a huge project, you know, on Beaver Creek and Maple Lane, so.
It's big.
I mean, and I do anticipate that as that need arises, that's something that can be addressed moving forward. And I think it would probably be, again, met somewhat receptively.
Sarah?
I'm not sure it matters at this point, but Hillendale and Tower Vista are listed as a 3-postcard set of neighborhoods, but we are 4.
Okay.
And we had an issue when Emma was here and my request
that
to
email
print-
that got lost in
Yeah,
spam.
it got lost. So we are 4
Okay.
on both of those, just in case that
We can
matters.
manipulate these numbers however we want.
Well, I mean, I agree
Yeah.
with Josh. I think that as long as we are operating on a surplus, it's hard to ask for more money. So, but I did want the numbers that we have to be
Yeah,
accurate. So
absolutely.
And then was yours 6? Is that what you just said?
Yeah,
Yeah,
was
so
the
it's
goal, so
ours.
let's plug 6 in there.
McLaughlin or?
Elyville.
So's Kanema.
McLaughlin, it should be 5 or 6.
We've tried to reduce it, though. We've reduced it.
And
to
McLaughlin, 6?
6.
I'd say estimate high on the budget. That's-
So with that, and Gaffney Lane didn't have 4, I just anticipated that going into the next year because Gaffney Lane is projected to reactivate very soon. That's $124.68 that we're over budget.
Bob?
I would just, sometime in the past, I recommended that the neighborhoods re-look at the number of meetings that they have per year. However, I've kind of changed my attitude about that, is that, you know, if you feel you need 4 meetings or 5 meetings or whatever the amount may be, I would encourage you to keep going with those because we will have the funding available by using the inactive neighborhoods budgets until we run out completely.
Yeah.
And then, like has already been said, we've been assured that we would be able to get more money. And in the past, we've used our funds for A-frame signs. So, you know, do those. In the past, I know that at Park Place, anyway, we have sent newsletters out, 2- and 3-page newsletters. I remember one that I sent out once just kind of gave a description of who the people were on the steering committee. Because a lot of people, you know, they wouldn't know them from Adam. And then other things were going on in the neighborhood, and maybe you might have to have an emergency meeting because of what's going on in your neighborhood. Now, one example, again, in Park Place, only because I'm familiar with it, was the attempt of the construction company to develop the Park Place concept plan area in opposition to whatever the plans were. And so those kinds of issues would represent an additional meeting per year. But, I would just encourage you to use every means you have available to go forward. Don't worry about your budget, because that's a really restrictive attitude that you're almost forced into. So I'd encourage you to just forget about the budget. Go ahead and whatever the heck you want to do. And when we start getting close to running out of money, we'll just go back to the city commission and say, hey, we don't have enough money.
And I will say this, one of the benefits of the whole biennial setup is because of the leftover we have now, I can pretty much guarantee you we're going to roll something over to next year, which means even under this very rosy forecast of meetings for everybody, we're still going to be well under budget.
Yeah.
So there's revenue there for the next year and a half. If we want to look at kind of this different funding mechanism, or not mechanism, I should say, but formula.
There's nothing in the CIC bylaws about the budget or how to use the money. That was just somehow had bylaws.
That's actually in the city, that's in the city's
Okay.
code.
And at one meeting, we had talked about using the funds from South End Road, Hazel Grove, and Rivercrest. And at that time, if I remember right, the funds were to be using it like for the last parts of the quarters that had already passed. So if someone came active the last quarter of the year, they would have the funds for it. So we had talked about using their funds as well that way.
Yeah, I mean, as we look at before, I mean, if you go back to kind of the prediction slide, that if we look at how some of those work, or how some of those are now, under the proposed formula, that money kind of sits there in a pot of extra that they would then be able to come forward to if one of them spins up and say, this is how many meetings we want to do, and then we would work out the cost of that, and we just plop that into the budget formula there as well. So the money would still be there should one of the neighborhoods spin up, and should it happen towards the end of a fiscal year and we were getting close, well, if we're hitting that 10%, we've got ammo.
And currently, right now, based off of the motions that were passed and what the CIC voted on, South End, Hazel Grove, and Rivercrest have been combined into a pool of fund where overdrafts of each one of the neighborhood association counts. So if Elyville is to send another postcard, that comes out directly of the inactive pooled money.
And I mean, and part of it is it's almost kind of like the psychological approach. If we change this formula, then it shows a better way, or it shows more accurately what everybody still has left. Whereas Carla doesn't have to worry about Elyville running out of money because that budget now reflects what she actually does have. And so that way we can kind of come at these at a way where we're kind of feeling a little more confident with what we need versus what we don't, and when we do have to make those asks.
I would just say I'd probably, in that, budget number, especially because you guys are going to have those additional houses and stuff coming into Caulfield and all that. When you're building something like that spreadsheet out, you might want to build a buffer into that.
As we
progress.
Yeah, as we move forward, and I would actually honestly suggest that as well.
I will say that it's not based off of exact populations. This specifically is based off of the addresses. So that's how.
Addresses.
Yeah. So until those, and we get that address number from the Oregon Records Management Solutions, where they have the resident mailing addresses. So that's where those numbers specifically, but again, the CIC is granted this budget. However you allocate those funds, it doesn't have to be based off of those addresses. It can be based off of, however you want to allocate those funds.
Yeah.
Any other questions, thoughts? Dan's, okay, sorry.
Yeah, I think if we, before we leave tonight, if we could just come up with a rough allocation, because what's happening is this goes on, okay, we're going to think about it, go to the next meeting. We need to send out more advertising. I just calculated out for my advertising for Cali, for Caulfield would be about a little over $9,000 to $700 a year to get to the people, to get the kind of results that we're getting back. And we want to get more online people. So I think the big thing is like Bob says, is let's spend the money. Let's get everybody marketed. Let's maybe get a coordinated marketing team, because we can do the magazine the city has that everybody can get to, and it's just $1,000, and we get to a lot of people, and we should be probably in that magazine, every time it comes on.
Well, fortunately, the person who's determines all the stuff for the magazine is here.
Oh,
We're talking about that later too.
Yeah, and Hannah is providing all that information. So when that call goes out, which honestly, actually, the information for the summer newsletter or summer trail news is due April 15th. So here's your plug for that. Get all that information to Hannah as soon as possible. So that way, all that information can be in trail news as well.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that more.
Are you planning to spend $9,000 of this money? Is that what you're saying?
That's what it takes to market it.
I'm asking if that's what your plan is?
No, the plan is not that. In order to get the 45 people that we've been having coming to our meetings, that's what we'd have to do.
I understand, but you're not planning on taking $9,000 out of that fund?
No.
Okay, that's all I am
No,
after.
what I'm saying is, I'm trying to say how much money we're going to actually need.
Yeah, it takes more, I get it.
Yes. So,
Tim?
I just wanted to ask if we could have a work session at some point, maybe the first one of the year, we'd do it in January or something, but be able to talk this through and just have a work session for this and just be done with it. I mean, let's put a plan together, because I mean, reality is the numbers are right here. You just have to take how many addresses you have and you have to multiply them by that dollar amount, and you pretty much have what you need, right? So, I mean, if we come up with McLaughlin $6,000, $7,000 or whatever, I mean, again, we have to define what this is for and what we're going to use it for. I don't know. It just makes sense when we're really not marketing per se. I mean, we're actually, what this is for is to notify people that we're having a meeting, as opposed to marketing, because marketing is way too expensive. I mean, and we're going to do. I mean, we've seen this, we know this, so we're working on websites and we're working on some things that we can do for nothing, basically, or a minimal amount of money, to notify people, in our area, in our group. And I'm very fortunate. I have a couple people that are really good at that. And so we're going to be putting up some pretty interesting stuff, I think. But a lot of people don't. So, but that is another path. Because we're thinking, this may not last forever, so we want to have something else in case. But I just think we need to talk about it and determine what we should do.
Carla?
The other topic for the neighborhood associations in the future is long-term, the state's going to take a big part of land use, right? So long-term, what the future is of the neighborhood associations, because, coming up 2026, 2028, I mean, it's already where the neighborhood associations don't get to give any feedback on certain type of land use projects that we used to be able to, right? So it'll be interesting, the future vision of what the neighborhood associations represent in the future. And to a degree, that's changing.
That's a good point.
So we have heard people wanting to have together in first a year and have a work session. We've had people say we want to do something tonight and do with the work sessions. Seems like maybe we need to go back to our neighborhoods, or do people feel like you have enough information now, or you want to go back to your neighborhoods and talk with the other people and come back at another meeting?
The only thing I would suggest is if instead of January, is if we looked at it for the end of June, so that way we're set for the fiscal year on July 1st.
That's what I was just going to mention.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't know if you wanted to do something for the remainder of this year and then workshop it for that or however, but we'll facilitate whatever you need.
I'd like a motion, Sarah.
I move we have a work session before the end of this fiscal year to determine our budget needs.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so work session in June, and could that be with our meeting, in context with our meeting, take some of our meeting, or do we want to do it?
We could do it like at 6, an hour before the normal meeting time, and try to power through it then.
Does that meet with everyone's agreement? Yeah. Sure. So June 6th, June, do we have a date on June? I don't have a calendar.
Yes, I'm looking. June 3rd is our CIC meeting.
Third meeting will be at 6 PM. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any public comments from anyone? All right. Staff update.
You want to do?
Minutes? Oh, minutes. Minutes? Skipped over minutes.
You've got the old one.
I've got the old one?
Yeah, this is-
Oh, okay, I've got the old one. We'll do March 4th meeting minutes. Did anybody have a chance to read the meeting minutes?
Yeah, I'll motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Second.
I've got a correction.
Correction?
You do?
It's not a huge one. But CERT is CERT and not SERT.
Where is this, Steve? What page?
Let's see.
So I'll be the one doing the corrections. So I want to know.
It's page 7.
Oh, under the Park Place.
It's the last line of the Park Place.
Oh, I see.
Nice catch. Missed that one. Okay, well, then I will revise my motion to approve the minutes as adjusted.
And
Second.
second the same.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes approved. Staff report.
Okay, so as Jarrod said, I had talked to some of you at the Spring Forward event about the trail news that went out for the spring and that goes out every quarter, and how much space the CIC and the neighborhood associations have within this publication. So within Trail News, the past spring issue that just went out last month, the neighborhood associations have their general meetings listed of their dates, their times, locations, links to their websites, a map of the neighborhood associations, and then a QR code for each one of the neighborhood associations for people to sign up for those email subscription lists. I will let you know that Jarrod, as he stated, is open to being able to, he is communications community manager. He manages the Trail News. Submissions for the next summer edition are due on April 15th. So that's the first round of submissions that are due. And there's ways that we can be able to add more information about your neighborhood associations, not just here within the Trail News that would specifically be going out to all of the resident addresses. Let's say you have a 2-page article that you want to be able to feature. Within the Trail News edition itself, we could have a little blurb about your specific article, whatever it is that you want to have incorporated in Trail News, and then we can have a link to the website that has the full edition of it. So I'm not saying that, hey, every neighborhood association, submit 2 pages worth of things. But what I am saying is that if you want certain articles or certain information broadcasted and communicated out to the public, that's more than feasible. Jarrod and I will just work on exactly how that looks. Okay, any questions about that?
Would the neighborhood be charged for that?
No.
Okay.
Again, because we're going to, it's not like the neighborhood associations would have 2 pages.
And what's your lead time that you need something like that done?
For the summer edition of the Trail News, we will need material by April 15th.
So when does the summer edition come out?
Projected May 29th, May 2nd? 22nd. Yeah. Yeah, and this is, Jarrod's been working on, there's, as you heard Melissa present on earlier, there's a certain time that the trail news needs to go out to be able to advertise certain programs. But not, even within the city, there's not always material that everybody has that are ready to go for the summer by May. So we're battling with that internally as city staff too. But know that April 15th is a deadline to be able to get the first edition of your material in for a trail news segment. And I am available to be able to post information on the website at any point in time, given like a reasonable timeline for me to be able to upload it onto the website with my work week. But then I can always send out emails to your email subscribers list saying that, hey, here's more information about this. You can incorporate a QR code onto your postcards if that's something, we have a lot of different options to be able to get information out to your neighborhood associations. That's what I'm here to be able to help with.
What's the deadline for each of the monthly e-trail news?
It varies.
Guess who does that too?
I know.
That I generally try to get it out usually in either the last Tuesday of the month or the first Tuesday of the month, kind of depending on what's happening when and stuff going on. So generally, if you can get it to me by if the moon is full and the tide is out.
Middle of the month? Sort of
sometime around like the last Wednesday of the month-ish.
Oh.
Something like that, because I get a lot of stuff coming in and then I put it all together.
So you only need a few days to...
Yeah. For e-trail news, it's a lot easier to plug and play on that versus a print thing. And we have a designer who does trail news, and that's a whole other... Yeah.
I can be sure to set a timer within my calendar to send email reminders about e-trail news too, saying, hey, do you have anything that you want to post 2 weeks out?
And I do send something out to all the internal departments that contribute to there, so we can add that to the mix as well, just so that everybody gets a reminder.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Reactivating neighborhood associations. Dave Hunt is in the crowd. I'm going to share my screen to be able to make sure that we're featuring a QR code that Gaffney Lane Neighborhood Association has put together to be able to have people participate in a survey, to be able to get some input on what Gaffney Lane Neighborhood Association residents are wanting to hear from within their neighborhood associations, what topics they're interested in, and anyone who might be interested in assisting Dave Hunt and reactivating the Gaffney Lane Neighborhood Association. So you can scan the QR code to be able to take that survey if you are a Gaffney Lane resident. I also am meeting, Linda and I are meeting, I just got an email notification, Linda, that, and Mark is here with us online as well. We'll talk about that later, but we'll be meeting with Mark to be able to discuss more in depth the resources that the City of Oregon City has for neighborhood associations and resources that the CIC can provide, even if it's just input on, hey, this is really good advice on topics and presenters to have at your neighborhood associations, as well as, postcard drafts and things of that sort. Speaking of postcard mailers, Jarrod and I have been working with the new contractor, the new company who is sending out our postcard, Eagle Web Press, and part of the contract and agreement that we have, we are now using the City of Oregon City's mailing permit to be able to send out those postcards. In that process, Jarrod has been working very diligently to be able to have online access to our permit to be able to transfer funds into our permit account. It has taken a very long time, so I'm asking for 10 days in advance of your postcards just to make sure to allocate for that time for us to be able to transfer funds until we get that process solidified. So 10 business days in advance of the day you want your postcard to go out. And again, that just gives me some buffer with some funding. Yeah, Dan?
Is it, there's a company, is that meeting, is mailing going to go out of Portland,
It goes out of Oregon City.
Oregon State?
Yes, so Salem sends it to Oregon City, and then, because that's where our mailing permit is, and then that's where the mail gets distributed out of.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Any other questions? No.
Well, that's 10 business days, that's like 2 weeks.
Yeah, and that's, again, that's to give me some buffer until we're able to have more of a solidified system to be able to transfer those funds quickly, rather than having to go through getting a check, needing to go to the post office to have that directly deposited. And Jarrod's been working very diligently on that. I think hopefully soon that'll be finalized. Yeah, but it's been a very long process, so we don't want to jinx it.
So is that 51 cents a postcard inclusive of that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes, it is. CIC renewals. I have gotten every neighborhood association minutes. Thank you so much. That makes my job very easy. I've gotten almost all CIC applications. Once I receive the last 2 CIC applications, we can move forward in making sure that everyone gets appointed for this next citizen involvement committee term that will last into 2026. Email subscribers, you can look at the graphics. I know we're reaching kind of late here to be able to look to see how much your neighborhood association has increased in their email subscribers. I've been posting public records. McLaughlin, all of your public records have been posted. Caulfield, all the ones that have been sent to me have been posted. Park Place also has sent me ones that have been publicly posted. I'm also in the process of going through and making sure to email out all of the bylaws that I have for every neighborhood association and confirming that those are the correct ones on file so that those can be easily accessible to the public as well. Some people made me aware of a different phishing scam that went out. There was an email sent on behalf of Dan Burge that was not Dan Burge. And the thing that I will just...
Good?
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, and I think all of you, like, I really appreciate you sending me, forwarding those emails, because then I know, okay, they know what to look out for. Because it's not only to protect the city's email and our system, but also all of you as individuals. The thing that I will emphasize is that if you're using your personal account, I would encourage you to create a more generalized neighborhood association account to post onto the public website. That way you're just not leaving yourself more vulnerable to be able to have that susceptible to phishing scams. Zoom recordings, our Zoom recordings for the CIC account have become full, and so I have deleted all of them, of course, transferring files over onto OneDrive, and then I've sent all of the neighborhood associations who had recordings on file an individual OneDrive file with all of their recordings, and that's where I will be posting and saving, filing all of the neighborhood association recordings in the future. As far as CIC meeting recordings go, you can be able to find those online through YouTube with the link provided in the staff report. And then I have those filed individually through the city files, just in case something happens with public records. So we have those. And then I'm always doing Zoom trainings if anyone needs them. And that's it for my staff report.
Roundtable, Park Place, Steve, Bob? Okay, catch you sleeping. Would you want to do Adam? We usually use Adam last, don't we? Yeah.
He wraps it all up.
He wraps it all up, yeah.
So Park Place had a steering committee meeting March 18th. Biggest item of discussion was displeasure with our current financial institute, and we're investigating moving to a new one. So we'll see if that works. We've just been having trouble getting our signature authority corrected. So rather than have them do it, we'll move to a new credit union and see if that works.
Anything to add, Bob?
Yes, we're currently working with the city Parks Department for improvements in Park Place Park, putting a new trail in, and it's moving along very well. We're looking forward to further improvements in Park Place Park. And then I'd like to thank Hannah for getting the neighborhood bylaws entered into the city website. So, because that's a pretty critical thing that you know what your bylaws say. Getting back to the postcards, and the number of meetings for each neighborhood are actually specified in your bylaws. So if you change it, you got to change your bylaw.
And
That's all I had. Thank you.
that might be something that everyone would want to look at and bring to our June meeting. Okay, just add that in. Okay. McLaughlin, Denise, and Tim.
Okay. So we had a really nice presentation from Dave Hunt from NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Health. One of the things he pointed out was the 988 suicide hotline, suicide and crisis hotline, has been funded by the state. And they're hoping that that will be just as commonly known about as the 911 hotline. We have from the Arts Commission, the statue that used to be on 7th and Center Street that was run over by a car is going to be replaced soon. And so we have a couple of options for what we're going to replace that with. Amanda Allwine talked about putting together Porch Fest again this summer, where people play music on their porches. And yeah, they did it during COVID and had a lot of fun, so they want to do it again. And that's all I have.
Yeah, just other than we're working behind the scenes with some subcommittees that are moving quickly, so we'll have some new things happening soon.
Josh and Sarah.
Josh, you were out of town. You want me to take it?
Go for it.
Okay. We had our steering committee since we've last met, and we went over plans for our May 11th community cleanup. We're going to go up on Malala, and Carla will talk more. Eliville might join us in that effort. And we went and developed more of our plans for our membership meeting, which is tomorrow night. And the main event for that will be Public Works, the water situation, which very much in the middle of our neighborhood, so be of big interest. And then we also have the courthouses in Hillendale, and we go to periodic updates because it affects our community, and we have one on May 7th for that. That's what I have.
Carla, Eliville.
So we have a general meeting next week. I know we're going to have the city in May come discuss, improvements in infrastructure in our neighborhood. We're also going to have Detective Wadsworth talk about, I guess the police department actually still has a criminal watch program. So we're going to see if parts of the neighborhood are interested in doing that. I know my street had one at one point because my house has a criminal watch sticker still on it. So it's pretty cool from a long time ago. I keep it on there. So that's kind of, and then also Oregon City Parks Foundation, on a side note, is going to help with Oregon City Watershed Council. And there's also the Boy Scouts, I forget the troop, but they're all getting together to clean up around Atkinson Park for the Buena Vista House. So if anyone wants to go this weekend to help, Eliville, hopefully we're going to announce it, so Eliville will join as well, maybe. And then other than that, I've been talking to Amy Wilhite, and she had a little message to tell everybody here. She said maybe at the next CIC meeting, you could bring up that the Gaffney Lane Neighborhood Association was thankful today receiving a reverse 911 alerting us to be the armed suspect of our neighborhood. However, we were notified when it was all clear. Looks like there's a little bit of extra work that needs to be done by the Oregon City PD. Very glad he was apprehended though. So she had that to say.
Garfield, Dan, and Lisa?
Lisa's going to take it.
Okay.
My name is Lisa Gersh, and I am the alternate CIC for Caulfield. I'm also the vice chair of the Caulfield Neighborhood Association. And the chair is actually in our audience right now, Rachel Gersh. So we have our meeting tomorrow night. We'll be voting on bylaws. We're introducing a new police liaison. What else? Oh, and the mayor will be at our neighborhood association. They still have the same issues, the housing development, the traffic, we still have the same issues as always.
Huge big development.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's ridiculous. It's huge. Bigger than what everybody thought.
Well, Kanema, I was gone, Dennis. I guess it's up to you.
I don't have much. We have a meeting on the 18th of April. I've been busy last week. I was fortunate to finally get a hold of representatives from Metro. And if you've been to Kanema, we have another fortunate thing. We have two parks. And one of our parks is surrounded by a large parcel from Metro. And we sort of share in the exchange of that park. And we have an agreement. We have a pioneer cemetery, I've mentioned that before, in the neighborhood. And there's a road, a half-a-mile road to this cemetery, and it's sort of a collaborative partnership that we have with Metro. And that was an agreement that was signed so many years ago, and it was expired about 2022. And so it's been sort of up in the air, and it's very important that we have this sort of like partnership with Metro in the care of this roadway to the cemetery, because it is celebrated by a lot of people who come out of the area, who still have residents that are in the cemetery, and they like to join in Memorial Day festivities, and we set out the flags and all this. Anyway, so very good, and I'm happy to say that this collaboration, the partnership with Metro and my park in the Kanema area is going along swimmingly, and we're coming to we're going to extend that agreement, and what it entails is no money exchange or anything, but it's like the care and the maintenance of that roadway into the cemetery. A very good reach out, and I'm very happy that they joined in this sort of like dialogue, and I'll have more to tell my neighborhood association in April on the 18th. So that was a good thing last week, and I was very, very proud to be a part of that. That's it.
Real quick, I just wanted to thank you for covering for Linda and I last month, Dennis. Appreciate you stepping in and doing that for us.
Yes. And last but not least, Adam.
Well, thank you, Linda, and thank you for scheduling all of those great presentations tonight. I really appreciated that. And one thing I think that we need to do better at in local government is realizing that a lot of the services that we provide as a city, as a municipality, there are a lot of these day-to-day things that I think we take for granted a lot, and a lot of us only really pay attention when the things go really, really bad. And so hearing about the great things that are going on in our departments is an important thing for us to do. And so I appreciated those presentations. On the budget, I just want to thank Jarrod and Hannah for their work in preparing that information for all of us. I do want to caution, based off of some comments that were made, I still think that we ought to move forward with some level of fiscal restraint. I think that when the commission said that we would be happy to provide those funds if they were to run out, it wasn't a check to do exactly whatever people wanted. And so I just wanted to make that clear, that making sure that there is that fiscal restraint and recognizing that every single department in this city is dealing with the same things. And I'm really proud still, despite the shortfalls that we've talked about the increase that we were able to secure in the last biennium. And again, I will always continue to talk about how the financial investment that was made to create a full FTE that is Hannah's position, that is dedicated to the CIC and the neighborhoods, is also something we don't necessarily see in the numbers. And so I just want to continue to say, as someone who believes that there needs to be the increased funding for the Citizen Involvement Committee, I want to be able to say to my peers and my colleagues on the commission that we have the best case possible in front of us to make those increases without just saying, well, you said you were going to give it to us, so we spent it as quickly as we could. And so I just wanted to make that point there. And then just one last thing that I'm really, really excited about is that we have some good news coming out of Washington, D.C., which is few and far between these days. But in the latest budget passed at the federal level, I'm really excited after doing a lot of intense lobbying with our Congresswoman and with Senator Merkley, we were able to secure $4 million for a critical transportation project that will get us one step closer to getting it. It is the 213 Redland Road area that is projected to fail. I believe it currently is failing because with the movement of the courthouse moving so many trips that direction, this is going to help us with engineering and scope of work as we try and undertake what they call the Jug Handle Phase 2 project that has been needed for a while now, but just hasn't had the funding necessary. And so I took our delegations on tours of the area and had meetings with them and their staff. And so I'm really excited that that work has actually paid off on something. And so that's what I have, just to end on some good news with some very important transportation and infrastructure money coming our way.
I don't really have a question for Adam, but I wanted to jump on what you brought up about the presentations that we had. I am a relative newcomer to Oregon City, as I've said many times, but there's so many opportunities for me to just sit back and glory in the city that I picked to live in. This is a great community. If you've lived here for a long time, you may not even be aware of how exceptional it is. But I think all of our presenters really just hit the mark on what kind of community we have, what it's about, and how hard people work to make it a great place. And Jarrod, I include you in that. I think you're doing great work. So anyway, just thank you, Oregon City.
On that note, anything else? I think we'll adjourn until May 6th.